Now, clearly you're not ashamed to admit your guilty pleasure.
No, I'm not ashamed. I'm very pleased to be able to stand up or sit down in front of people and tell them that I love that film, because unfortunately I'm surrounded by most of the people I know I would call them film wankers. And I mean that with respect. Like my forever girlfriend's favourite film is Persona by Bergman.
It's very different.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot more Lacanian than Notting Hill, for instance. My brother's a film and TV director, and his favourite film is anything by Ken Loach. And again, you know, it's very difficult to find a thoroughgoing Marxist interpretation of Notting Hill.
Notting Hill is a bit further away from those council flats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not there's no sort of Raining Stones sort of thing going on in Notting Hill. And once a friend of mine, we were talking about it, and someone said, "What's your favourite film, Alan?" Because this is genuinely my favourite film. Like, if I had to choose one film to take away with me, it would be this. Like, I fucking love this film so much. I was talking.
There's a fine line between talking panel session and a therapy session, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, this is cheaper. But I was talking to someone recently, and they said, "What's your favourite film?" And I said, "Notting Hill." And quite frankly, that just stops most conversations dead, because people think firstly, people think you're taking the piss. And then people are horrified that I could like this, like that I A, like it, like it's my favourite film, and B, will actually say that to people. And a guy said to me, I said to this guy, "What's your favourite film?" And he said, Pasolini's Salo.
Whoa!
I thought
that would clear a room too.
Well, no, I thought I've had enough of this shit because normally I just acquiesce and I go, yeah, well, I suppose Notting Hill isn't as groundbreaking as Persona, for instance, or something like that. And I said to him, well, interestingly, there was a scene that was deleted from the final cut of the movie where Hugh Grant gets Julia Roberts to eat only marzipan for 2 weeks, and then she poos in his mouth. And
why did they cut that?
Yeah, and this guy just looked at me completely blankly, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to acquiesce from now on. I'm just going to go, yeah, I love it, and then just be quiet and drink my herbal tea.
But do you remember the first time you saw it? So you're saying you were sitting in the cinema and thinking, as it was rolling along, this is going to be my favourite film. This is the greatest film ever made.
No, I didn't say it was the greatest film ever made.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's my favourite. It's my favourite film. No, I can't. I just loved it. I saw it so it was released in 1999, and I saw it. It was about this time in 1999 that I saw it. So it was dark and cold in Melbourne. And I went to the Greater Union Cinema in Russell Street, which was also dark and cold all the time. But I was quite poor then, and the Russell Street Greater Union had the advantage of, like, it didn't have anything. It basically had some rooms with some shit-house seats in them, and it showed films, and it had one staff member during the day. So I just would I'd just stay in there for most of the day and see.
Yeah, right.
I saw this twice. Back to back, I just stayed in the cinema. No one came in because I was the only person in there watching it, and I just stayed and watched it again when they started playing it.
This is a therapy session.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, the Greater Union was fantastic. It was so understaffed, you could just stay there forever. And then they closed it, and I used to go there quite a bit, and even I didn't notice that it was closed.
Yeah.
So I once showed my equity card there, and the guy who was working there thought that meant I was a critic, and so he let me in free. And every time I went in there afterwards, he let me in for nothing. I didn't have the heart to. I should have said something immediately, but I didn't, and I don't feel bad about that.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I remember I went home and I said to my girlfriend, I said, I saw this film Notting Hill. That Richard Curtis wrote, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I described it to her, and I saw the face that I have seen many times when I say how much I love the film, which is just a mixture between what the fuck and oh.
It's interesting because I think 4 Weddings and a Funeral is a better movie, and You've looked at me with a death stare.
Oh, did I? No, sorry, no. I've got a really bad cold, so I'm quite heavily medicated. So
Yeah, okay.
I was genuinely blank then.
Okay.
Right, so it wasn't a death stare at all.
Phew. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a better movie, and it's the one when you think of Richard Curtis or Hugh Grant. It's the first one you jump to in your mind, but Notting Hill for you is the one that stands out a bit more than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I watched it a couple of times again before doing this to try and isolate why I love it so much. And I think it's not so much the love story between Anna Scott and William Thacker, though that is great. I think it's the group of friends that you don't see in the trailer. To me, it's a film about friends. And there's a scene where he takes Anna round to his friend's house, and he's cooking. It's Tim McInnery, and he's cooking spatchcock or something like that, and he burns it. But they end up sitting around the dinner table, and they just accept her. Like, yes, she's famous, but she's also just one of them, and I really like that. I like the idea that people have friends who just go, okay, so you bought a famous woman, we're over it now.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have a competition to get the last brownie, and the competition is who has the most tragic life.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be his friend who, is in a wheelchair and can't have children. But the most tragic thing is that she had to give up smoking.
Yeah.
And there's something about that I really like.
And also the film was well loved, not just by you, but critics as well really loved it. It was one of the highest grossing British films of that year. The soundtrack was also popular. As a Spicks and Specs aficionado, how do you rate the signature song from the soundtrack, Ronan Keating's You Say It Best When You Say Nothing at All?
It would have been better had he said nothing at all, but in the context of the film, it works absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, because
they're in a common garden.
Yeah.
And she invites him to sit down, and then there's like a aerial shot that just keeps on going up and up and up, and Ronan Keating singing, and it's just, you go, okay, I wouldn't have picked Ronan Keating, but you know better than I, because I've never made a film that took $300 million at the world box office.
Yeah.
So, and also, one of the things I find interesting when you talk about films like this is I think people underestimate how difficult it is to make something that's popular. Like, it's not that hard to make something that 250 people like. It is difficult to make something that millions of people like. And I think that, if it was easy to be popular, most performers, filmmakers, musicians would be.
And also a lot of critics don't like to say they like something that is popular because it might sound a bit sort of uncool, or they don't have their critical faculties about them.
Yeah.
They almost want to be contrary. One of the reviewers in the Los Angeles Times, Kenneth Turin, said the film's romantic core is impervious to problems, which sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger reviewing a Sherman tank. Impervious to problems. John Picchio from Metro Movies says that the movie is a fairy tale, and writer Richard Curtis knows how much the public loves a fairy tale. I think this film might be a guilty pleasure because in many ways it's an adult fairy tale. Princess meets pauper. Pauper's housemate is the naked village idiot. If we were remaking this movie today and you were Hugh Grant's character William, which celebrity would you like to bump into so that she spills orange juice on you and you end up on this romantic adventure? Which celebrity from today would you remake this movie with?
Oh, God. Thank you. The idea of being William Thacker, the Hugh Grant character, I'm beside myself just thinking about it. I will think of one, but Julia Roberts is just perfect.
Okay.
Like, she's absolutely perfect. She's such a great film star. When she's just got a wonderful presence on screen. When she smiles, the whole place just explodes.
Yeah.
And, it's her smile is Rita Hayworth's hair. When Rita Hayworth, flicks her hair back in Gilda, it's just like, bang, there it is. And, and she talks about Rita Hayworth in there. But when Julia Roberts smiles, the whole... remember seeing a film, I can't remember what it was, and I thought, I think Julia Roberts was really weird in that. And then afterwards I thought, she didn't smile once. That's her secret weapon, is not smiling or smiling. It changes it.
Right.
It's like when Robin Williams would grow a beard, you knew it was going to be a dramatic role.
Film, yeah.
So Julia Roberts not smiling, you go, ha-ha. Watch for that, Academy. I'm just trying to think. Oh, God. Someone from today who I would want to bump into. Is it weird to say Michelle Pfeiffer?
No.
Okay, Michelle Pfeiffer. Because I was thinking of someone younger and I thought, no, it wouldn't work if they were, like, I'm old. Like, it would be weird if it was someone like Emma Stone. Because also the thing is, if I bumped into an actress, I would knock her over.
Yeah, right.
Like, they're all really, really little. Like, it would be a very different story if I ran into Julia Roberts, because I would just probably keep on walking and stomp all over her by accident. Like, and go, what was that? That was weird, and then look down and she'd be like that. So I'd probably want someone relatively sturdy.
Well, the weird thing...
Maggie Kilpatrick.
The weird thing about Emma Stone is she was in this movie called Aloha recently, where she played a quarter Chinese, quarter Hawaiian character.
Isn't she the whitest person ever?
I know, and her hair was blonde in the movie.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Okay, so let's try to make this remake with you and myself playing... who is it? Michelle Pfeiffer.
Let's go with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer. Here we go. So this is the seminal moment from the end of the film.
I have the script here, but you've got the actual pages. It would take me a while
Yeah.
to... That's how much I love it. That's the script.
All right. You can play William, and I'll play Anna. Oh, we're in the bookshop, right?
Yeah, we're in the bookshop.
Let's set the scene.
Yeah,
okay.
and she's come in with a Chagall painting.
Oh, that's right. So it's after they had this misunderstanding because he went to her filming a Henry James film and overheard her on the headset saying something disparaging about him.
No, just not saying any. Who's that guy? And she said nobody in particular. And then he says, "I heard you say that I was nobody in particular." And she says, "Do you think that I'm going to tell the most indiscreet man in Britain?" She's referring to the actor she was talking to about my personal life. And she's got this package next to her. And it's a big package. He's got the Chagall print of the Chagall painting in his flat, and she has.
But it's Michelle Pfeiffer, so it's like a poster for Dangerous Minds. Okay.
Well, now you've wrecked it.
Oh, okay. So,
the original poster for Dangerous Minds isn't as good as the original Chagall.
Okay, it's a Chagall. Okay, I've got a Chagall.
Okay.
Am I crying? I can't remember.
Not until. I think you'll know.
Okay, I'll know.
I think you'll know. If you thoroughly enter into the spirit of this, I think that you will know when to cry.
Okay.
The truth is, with you, I'm in real danger. It took like a perfect situation, apart from that foul temper of yours, but my relatively inexperienced heart would, I fear, not recover if I was once again cast aside, which I would absolutely expect to be. There are too many pictures of you everywhere, too many films. You'd go and I'd be, well, buggered, basically.
I see. That reality is a real no, isn't it?
I live in Notting Hill. You live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are. My mother has trouble remembering my name.
Okay, fine. Good decision. The fame thing, it isn't really real, you know. Don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her.
The stage directions read, pause, she kisses him on the cheek.
Bye.
Then turns and leaves, leaving him.
End scene.
Yeah.
That was emotional. Alan Bro, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Notting Hill. Now, this film, it's a roller disco movie. There's been a few roller disco movies made in the past, but this one has got to be the best. So I tried to find it. I could not find this movie.
No, this film had actually no home entertainment release ever. And
It was so good they didn't release it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can just, you can't harness that sort of energy. You have to be in a collective sort of space. This is not for home consumption. But look, no, it is. There was a real kind of lineage of roller films in the late 1970s. This came out in 1979, beating Roller Boogie by just 2 months. Roller Boogie had a claim to fame for being one of Linda Blair's Exorcist follow-up films.
Wow.
But this takes the cake because it's actually Patrick Swayze's first film.
Yeah.
So you may have noticed him looking like the kind of extra from the Warriors in that piece there. But it is essentially a West Side Story-esque sort of story told on wheels. Two warring groups come together as a girl stuck in the middle. I mean, it's Shakespearean. It's Shakespeare on wheels again. So, I
like how you say it's West Side Story-esque when it should be Romeo and Juliet-esque, which became West Side Story.
On wheels.
On wheels.
As long as they're the wheels.
Yeah.
It's the defining factor of the film, as you saw from the taglines. It almost feels as if they've come up with those taglines. It's like the greatest story ever rolled. Yeah, hang on a minute. Roller skates. Yeah, hang on a minute.
Someone write that down.
Yeah. The central, kind of hero as well. I have no concept of the performer's name, but he looks like a Mark Hamill stand-in in it. And look, Billy Barty's in it. Billy Barty played Gwildor in the Masters of the Universe film, the fantastic Dolph Lundgren canon piece.
Scott Baio's in it.
Scott Baio, Joni, I don't think loved Chachi too much in this film. So, but look, I just have a real deep love of this film because it doesn't take itself too seriously. It goes in there, it just starts up the music. There is not a moment in this film and there is not some sort of disco beat going on. It just kind of like, talk about Gaspar Knows Love, it just completely just overindulges your senses with, neon and roller music and everything. I saw it in the cinema at the Alamo Drafthouse in Fantastic Fest, and the Alamo Drafthouse have this really great model of plying you with a tremendous amount of liquor and then releasing like a secret film on you. And I was in a sold out theatre.
That sounds really dodgy.
Yeah, but look at what they're showing. I saw it in a theatre with about 100 people, and the collective sort of wave of euphoria that started from the front row all the way down to the back aisle was really quite hypnotic. And I think in a lot of times with genre films, and this is a genre film. There was a time there when roller skate films were a big deal.
So they were the superhero movies.
Exactly. You remember for a time there in the early 90s, like Alan mentioned Greater Union. I remember going to Greater Union and seeing like 5 different Mission to Mars films. There was, and all that sort of the volcano period of the 90s with Dante's Peak and Volcano. It was very similar with roller films, and there is no real story to them, but they're almost like choreography pieces. The Step Up movies are currently, worldwide phenomena. I like to think that, Skate Town USA kind of set the pathway for the Step Up empire. But look, seeing it with a group of people is the way to go. If you sit at home alone and watch Skate Town USA, it's not the same experience. So kind of coming at it from someone who loves seeing films in a communal space with people, this is really, just an almost euphoric experience, as I said before, and the music just really gets you.
Is there something you reckon you could get this film for the Astor Theatre?
As I said, it hasn't been released on any format. You'd have to find a 35mm print of it, which is what I saw. I think this could be worth the freight charges to bring Skate Town USA to the halls of the Astor. But it is something that, again, you can't kind of replicate. I think nowadays too, a lot of filmmakers try and make a film that is self-referential. A lot of films like those Shark versus Bear or Mega Bear versus Shark, they are kind of already in on their own joke before they've made the joke.
Yeah.
Whereas this film's made with a lot of sincerity. It's actually made by people who apparently appeared at the time to be really into what they were making, even the man with glitter in his beard. And I think you can't replicate that. You have to sort of, have that kind of time capsule experience. And, it might sound like a cliche thing to say, but I don't think they can make a film like this anymore. I think we're too self-aware as a viewing audience to have this sort of being created, because someone at some point when they were making this had to go, what the hell are we making?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you're saying this film is cinema in its innocence?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, talk about cinematic purity. This is like, the absolute sort of apex of an idea being actualized on screen. So
Scott Baio himself, and I'm reading from a quote of his, he would disagree with that.
Yeah.
He said, "I've blocked this movie from my memory. It was so bad. They sent me the script and it was crapola." I thought he said capola for a second, but crapola. And I said, "No way." They just kept calling and offering more money. And finally I said, "Well, hell, whatever, okay." Well, he's got principles.
Well, look, apparently there is a lot of conjecture that it may have been a lot of drug taking on the set of this film. So, maybe a lot of decisions weren't fully thought through. The film actually did premiere in LA in a roller skating rink.
Wow,
and
awesome.
the audience were given roller skates and they could roll around while the film
while
was
watching
playing.
it.
Yeah, which is sort of exactly, you really want to be sort of dizzy while you're watching it as well.
Yeah.
So that's a great sort of like immersive experience.
That's better than IMAX. Funny you'd say that there were drugs on set, because the co-star Maureen McCormick writes in her autobiography, like a disco, there was a lot of cocaine being done on set.
I mean, I would suggest that anyone who puts glitter in their beard has to have some sort of substance in their system in order to get that in there. So.
Take me through some of the cameos in this movie. It seemed to be a who's who of the 70s and 80s, or who was going to be huge in the 80s as well.
I mean, you've got Billy Barty in there, as I said, and I think there's just a number of other sort of cameos. What have you got written down there, Lawrence?
I've got Marsha Brady.
Marsha Brady is in there, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, before she got hit with a football, I think, yeah. So, yeah.
And this is Patrick Swayze's first movie, and apparently he was a dancer and also a roller skater.
Yeah, he's had a number
youth.
of roller skating experience, and really, the only living kind of kernel of this that is readily accessible via the public is Patrick Swayze's sequence, which you can go on YouTube and check out. And I highly recommend, if you want to alienate anyone at your party or get them to leave, just kind of put that on, and they'll really either stay and never get rid of them, or they'll be out the door in 2 seconds.
I mean, what's he doing? Is he just
he's just
nuts?
going around in circles, and he also he throws a lot of cigarettes while he's because he's tough. Because he's tough.
Cool.
He's just sort of, and he's got a toothpick as well. So I mean, it's
a toothpick and a cigarette.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like method acting in every respect. And like I said, he's dressed specifically like he's out of the Warriors. So obviously they're doing a lot of sort of like matching there. But look, I think there's really a fantastic energy to the film, and I think that you have to sort of really appreciate that. And I think I'm very saddened to hear that Mr. Baio does not look fondly on it. So and in the annals of Scott Baio, if this is what he's embarrassed about, I'm not sure about that. So I think we could have a lot of different opinions on that.
Yeah, he's regretting this the most out of his career.
I think he's taking a cheap shot, Scott. Yeah.
I think finally we're going to play a game, because of course I said I can't find this movie. However, I went to the IMDb page and I found there's a list of key search terms or tags related to this movie, written by obviously fans of the movie. I have no idea what these tags mean, so I want you to explain, at least in a sentence or two, what each of these tags mean. Okay, first of all, legs.
Well, clearly, I mean, it's a roller skating film, but as you saw from the thing, there is numerous sequences of legs doing this in the film.
There's a lot of crotch shots.
There's a lot of crotch shots. I mean, which is, it's the 70s. It was a drive-in film. I think that's I think you had to get 5 crotch shots in for order to get funding or something like that. Yeah. So yeah.
Itchy powder.
Well, clearly, as you saw, also a lot of glitter on set, not potentially cocaine as well. But there is just a lot of people throwing. There's a sequence where they just have, they have to get very serious if they don't want, corns or anything. They have that kind of powder in their roller skates, and there is a fight scene that breaks out where everyone gets covered in this almost flour-like substance, which may or may not be cocaine. Who knows? But certainly not glitter.
Okay, crazed Vietnam vet.
It is a 70s requisite that you have a crazed Vietnam vet in your film. If you're an exploitation genre film, you have to have someone. And they do have a very, very small Nam flashback in it as well, too, on wheels.
On wheels?
And and then he snaps back into it. But it's, so I don't want to spoil what it is, because anyone can track this down. It's serious business, and it's a potential moment in the film.
Smell of napalm.
Yeah, it's, but yeah, look, it's a very serious topic.
Okay, I don't get this one. Reference to Colonel Sanders?
Yes, there's a number of references to Colonel Sanders in the film, from people just subliminally eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and also someone dressed up as Colonel Sanders going around as well. Yeah.
So they had sponsorship?
They probably did, I'd say. Yeah, or maybe it was just free catering.
Pizza Playboy Playmate. That was a tag.
Again, going into the sort of staples of 70s genre cinema, this has a slight kind of touches on softcore pornography sometimes. There's always that kind of sleazy pizza guy. Luckily, there is no softcore porn in the film, but it's certainly like an orgy of bad taste, I think. So it's this guy just props up as a pizza guy, and of course he delivers the pizza on wheels. Everything happens on wheels. There's not a single person that walks on regular pavement in this film.
Yeah, right.
With their foot.
And the last tag I have here, I don't understand, because Michael Myers isn't in the movie. Why is Michael Myers a tag here?
I think that would be referring to not Shrek, but Michael Myers, the Shape from Halloween. Because the script is actually written by Nick Castle, who was the guy who played Michael Myers in the original Halloween film by John Carpenter.
Well done, you are a film buff.
Yeah, though, but this was after Halloween, so clearly playing a mute serial killer with a mask completely obscuring your face didn't lead to a huge career, because he wrote Skate Town USA. But no, that would be the Michael Myers connection.
Okay, so this is Skate Town USA. Is there any way that we can see this?
No, it's you can get. Ironically enough, it's never been released on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, or Blu-ray, but you can access that trailer on a number of trailer Blu-ray compilations. But no, really, you have to just kind of watch Patrick Swayze's dance sequence for 90 minutes if you really just sort of want to replicate the whole experience. So, hopefully, good taste or crowdfunding will come to that. Yeah. The help of getting this film out to the public.
Well, I hope to see it at the Astor Theatre. Please put your hands together for Zac Hepburn. Thank you. What a great choice. First question, why?
There are a couple of reasons why. Last year during Comedy Festival, I found it in a bin, like a for sale bin, not just...
Like a dumpster?
Yeah, a dumpster. I mean, dumpster diving. No, in a news agency. And I'm like, and it became my sort of either hungover or coming home drunk film. It was like just, usually it's Law and Order Special Victims Unit, but this last year was Milo and Otis. And the other reason being, it was one of the first films I ever saw in the cinema. I grew up in a really small town in Tasmania, didn't have a cinema, and the only two films I saw before I left when I was 19 was Milo and Otis and Crocodile Dundee 2. I never saw the first. I've never seen the first Crocodile Dundee. So I remember very fondly because it was very exciting to go to the cinema, and so it was like the best thing ever, which it clearly isn't. But I've held on to that, and the guilt part comes into it because you watch it as an adult going, they just threw a cat off a cliff. And mix that horror with a bit of nostalgia, and you've got yourself a problem.
Yeah. It's like, was it Artax, that horse that dies in Never-Ending Story? Yeah, sorry to bring that back up again. Yeah, with this film, I don't know if we should talk about that now, but is it true that all these animals died during the making of it?
Well, it's someone who's when you're watching it, you're just like, oh, that's a different cat all of a sudden. And, it's enforced method acting. That's how they filmed it. So they've got a pug and they've gone, oh, this bear, we'll chuck the pug at it and then see what it does. So the pug is behaving very realistically. And so is the bear. And it's just filmed and for our viewing pleasure. And
because this was before CGI, we're talking about.
Yeah, there's no, it's definitely there, and you never see one of these animals entering into a situation that always cuts to the middle of it. There's like a splash. Someone threw the pug at the bear. So there's no proof There's never actually been any proof that any animals were harmed. There's a lot of forums that say, well, there was 20, people talking, but it's never been actually proven, but there was.
There was?
Yeah, there absolutely was. It's just the things they threw. There's a scene, Milo, the cat, is being pecked by seagulls because the crew have put the kitten, amongst some eggs, and then gone, watch the fucking seagulls go off. And so you've got this kitten, and it's terrified, just going, oh, fuck. And then they're like, well, how are we going to get the cat out of this? And what they do is like, well, of course the cat would jump off the cliff. No, the cat wouldn't. The cat would have stayed there and gone, fuck, I'll go back down. Right, it's a cat. But no, so cut to a cat, in midair, jumping off a cliff. But you don't see the cat jump off the cliff, because the cat wouldn't have jumped off a cliff. Someone has thrown it. So they've edited that bit out, the hands just go cut. And so you've got this cat, and it's been chucked because it's going backwards, right? It's like if you jump off a cliff, I know, I've done it, you go forwards, right? You don't go, I'm gonna run backwards and jump. You don't get a lot of momentum.
So they're not just doing really good acting, and it's not just the screenwriter saying we need some conflict here. You think that they're definitely manhandling these kittens?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not convinced there was a script writer in pre-production. I think they got let's put a cat in a box on a river and watch it go down a waterfall. And they got all this footage, and then they've gone, now let's see if we can piece together a story.
There might have been screenwriters, but they could have been sociopaths.
It isn't. Well, originally it was a film. It's a Japanese film. It was made in 1986, and it took about 4 years to make, and Lord knows how many kittens and pugs. But
from the same makers of that whaling movie.
Pretty much. Yeah, not a first date film, that one. But then it was voiced over by our friend Dudley Moore, for the American release. And so then a lot was cut out. There's a lot more mauling that is obvious in the Japanese version.
You've seen the Japanese version?
I've seen outtakes of it, the outtakes. Okay. With a bear, there's a scene where the pug is, going, I'll take on a bear. And the bear's like, will you? And then
there's that cockfighting scene.
And then they're just the pug's splashing around in the ridge, in the one we've seen, and then the pug gets away. In the Japanese version, you can see the bear pin the pug down and just go, Rah! And I'm like, it's like, gosh, oh dear. So they've made it, they've cleaned it up and one of my favourite scenes is this, the first point when rewatching it where you go, oh, that's not it's a curious cat, and on a tree branch going, oh, what's this noise? It's annoying me, and it's of course a baby bird, And then they've obviously just put this kitten next to a bird's nest and gone, let's film what happens. And what the kitten does is just hit the bird repeatedly, just like, go, go. And Dudley Moore's going, stop it, you're being really, now hush up, making it really, fun and, children friendly, like, shut up, little bird, shut up, oh, you're making such a noise. But in reality, it's a kitten going, dunk, 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 on a baby bird.
Do you think Dudley Moore knew what was going on when he was watching it? Is he improvising like a director's commentary, or is he trying?
You'd like to think so. Every animal has a different voice as well. Like the fox is Cockney. I mean, you've got to love his range. I'm not sure how much direction he was given, but it is worth it just for that alone. And when Milo and Otis have their love interests pop up, Milo is my favourite. Milo the cat sees a cat in the distance, and she's just looking all soft focus on the horizon, and just and Milo's gone up to her, and Dudley then voices and goes, hello, my name's Joyce. I can't imagine they've just gone, the cat's name's Joyce. It's like, I'll just think of a fucking name. And Dudley's just gone, Joyce. Joyce for a cat, which I think is delightful. And the pug's love interest is called Sandra. Sandra's French, but not. And then, of course, they get lost in the snow and hide in a cave and then have children. Well, puppies and kittens. And that's the best bit for me because, you know, it's a coming-of-age film. You watch them almost die 12 times and then they find love and they get more young animals to torture. But...
there's a birthing scene, isn't there?
There's two. One each. One for the cat, one for Joyce, one for Sandra. And
how's this G-rated?
I know, it's G-rated. And it's not just, just like they don't edit around it going, and you watch it come out like bloop. Like both of them, bloop. And Dudley is voicing all of it as it's happening. And I just, his brief was obviously now you need to sound like a cat giving birth. Like... at that moment. And of course Joyce was wonderful. Milo, I think it's time. Oh yeah. And it's incredible. Dudley's range is incredible. Sandra has 3 French babies. I've named them already. Pierre. This one's Pierre. I can't remember what the other ones are called.
I think there will be a wonderful project that you could do where you can revoice the movie.
I think I'd like to do that. Like, I have thought about that.
That would be so good.
Yeah.
Hannah Gadsby's Milo and Otis.
Yeah, I think so. I think, that's probably what I'll do tonight. It'd be a wonderful idea. There's not much you can do with the narrative. It's clearly all there. It's animals under torture. Thank you for the idea.
You can have that.
Thank you.
You have also another guilty pleasure very recently. What is going on with your Instagram? Here we go. This is you exactly looking like you are the doppelganger of Ruby Rose.
Yeah, I want fame, and I just realised that Ruby Rose, of course, was on the new season of Orange Is the New Black, and I just thought, why haven't I been asked to do a prison drama? I'm perfect, like not even Wentworth, nothing. And I just sort of thought, I need to pitch myself. I need to put myself out there. Who's going to know? I'd be good in jail, but I'd be really good. And so Ruby and I have actually got quite a lot in common. Except good genes. She's got very good genes. But because I don't have good genes, I'm much more interesting. And so what has begun as a project going, I'll pitch myself as a possible candidate for Ruby Rose understudy. And I've been looking at her Instagram because the way people represent themselves on social media is incredible. Like Instagram is like, she's prolific and putting herself out there and she's so serious. Like you look at it and you go, and fans just go, oh great, oh she's hot. I look at it and go, why are you doing that? Like why are you doing that? And why did you just go, can we delete that one? Of course she's a model, so she's got these all, so I've just sort of started reenacting them. But also I found that if I go back through my back catalogue of awful photos, they already exist, which sort of means to me that there are tropes. The way we represent ourselves and have our photo, there are tropes. So, I've just had a marvellous time. Now I've got bored, so I've entered, I don't know if he knows this, but Putin has now joined the race to be Ruby Rose's understudy.
Yeah, I've seen this. There's the 3 of you in pictures, all looking very similar.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
I wish I had a picture of that up here.
It's okay.
I don't have that. Thank you very much.
It's
Hannah Gadsby,
Ruby
Rose, and Milo and Otis. Now, Criv, are you ready to admit that your trashy guilty pleasure at MIFF might perhaps risk judgment from your peers here at MIFF, losing your standing as one of Australia's finest directors?
Possibly, but I'm willing to take the risk.
Why? For those of people who don't know what the Carry On films are, what are the essential ingredients of a Carry On film?
Well, Carry On films are basically an ensemble of character actors, wonderful British character actors who worked on these films for 30 years. And they were all basically farces or comedies about various British institutions like the health system, or they also used to parody famous films that came out at the time, like Carry On Cleo and Carry On Screaming, which was a sort of parody of horror films. So they're a real, I guess, a slice or a compartment of history, of British history, of colonial history, of cinema history that I find absolutely fascinating.
And there's 31 of them.
31. They were made between 1958 and 1992.
Oh, wow. So that's like
and the golden period was basically 58 to 78. And there was one director and one producer.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that is a career.
It is, yeah. And they made a lot of money. And they were enormously successful.
So they're kind of like the James Bond films, because there's quite a lot of James Bond films too.
That's right. It's the second longest running franchise in cinema history. Yeah, next to James Bond.
Next to James Bond.
Yeah.
And probably just as well known for the characters. Is it the same archetypes in all the different films?
Yeah, well, basically, Sid James was always essentially the lead. The stories were always built around him, and he would always play the hero. So even in Carry On Cowboy, he played the cowboy, the lead gunslinger, or in and Carry On Camping, he was the lead camper, or he came to the camp with his friends. So he was always the central character in which they pinned the story on.
Do you remember your first one you saw?
No, because you see, I used to watch these films as well. To me, they're also part of my childhood. They're a kind of seminal part of my upbringing. They're always on TV. Usually on the weekends, on Friday night or Saturday night, and I'd always sit down with my parents. And I think maybe the first one I saw was possibly maybe Carry On Screaming, but they're all melded into one. Because they were always continually on, perennially, year after year. They're all just sort of one big long movie.
So when you were young and watching them, did you get all the double entendres back then and all the innuendos?
No, it was so funny because I used to watch the films with my grandmothers, who are Latvian, so English isn't their first language. And even the double entendres, they would just laugh. And so as I grew up, I started getting them more and more. And my grandparents would still laugh more and more. I'd really go, I don't think you understand totally what that was about. But I think they just loved to them they looked like innocent films, but there were all these different levels going on them, which I also found fascinating. But yeah, as I got older, I got them more and more. And I don't know, I know it's politically incorrect, but it's just that kind of humour that I do find funny.
What is it that made you want to watch more? Like, why is it your guilty pleasure?
Well, it's my guilty pleasure primarily because what I love in all the films are just the actors. I mean, you've got here an incredible generation of beautiful British character actors who's originally started in music hall, and that's where the humour comes from as well. It's music hall humour. And I guess those sort of bawdy turn of the century seaside postcards and the humour from that. So, but what you've got is this amazing generation of British character actors: Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey, Jim Dale. And these ensembles also shifted over the films. They came in and came out, and I just love them. They're just wonderful actors, and I think that's what I get. That's what I get the most out of, the joy just seeing these wonderful actors. And these guys would work. They would make a film, maybe 2 films every year. They were a company. All the films were made in one location. They were all made at Pinewood Studios. So if it was like Carrying On at the Khyber Pass, it was literally just shot outside the studio. They were shot very cheaply, but it was a community. And they, even when the James Bond films were being made there, there's great stories about all these famous actors like Roger Moore being, really excited to have lunch in the commissary with the Carry On cast because they were just there. They were the resident cast.
I don't think we've got anything in Australia like that in terms of a repertory sort of like film company. I know like Wes Anderson always uses the same actors, or a lot of the same actors again and again. Is there anything in Australia that's like that?
No, that's the thing. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking there really isn't I mean, I guess there was the Naked Vicar show. There's probably, Paul Hogan. There were always eras, as they are now. Every comedy group has their time. The D Generation or the Chasers or whatever. But this was like, this went on for a good 3 decades.
Now, do you have a favourite Carry On movie?
Look, I don't, but I do. I mean, to me, they all shift. It's like songs. I can't have a favourite. I'm always listening to music and songs, and I have a certain song that's my favourite for that time for my mood. But I guess some of the peaks are Carry On Screaming, Carry On at Your Convenience, which was actually the least successful film that they made. They made that in '72, I think.
Was that set in a convenience store?
No, it was set in a toilet factory.
Oh, of course. Wow, raising the bar.
Yep. And probably Carry On Abroad as well, which was the last film that Charles Hawtrey was in. He was very sad. He was a chronic alcoholic, and what they had to do in the last few films, they had to write him as a bumbling kind of alcoholic mummy's boy, because he literally would drink by lunchtime, and they'd have to make the gag about him drinking, and he's physically drinking.
Yeah, whoa.
Always on
method
set.
acting.
Method acting to the limit. So Carry On Abroad, which is actually a really beautiful film, really great film. It was his last film, so that's probably also a little favourite of mine as well. Yeah.
Wow. So with these films, like I don't think there's anything quite like it anymore. Like I can't think of. I mean, every generation has their National Lampoons, or it's the similar characters moving on to different situations. Pee Wee Herman had his movies, and Ernest Goes Camping. But they don't really make these films anymore, do they? No,
because it's also generational. Obviously, it's a lot of the humour is depending on what generation you're from. It is politically incorrect. A lot of it is, I guess, sexist, and it has. You look at it now. I look at it more like as this fantastic artifact, and it's just so interesting. Keep on going back to it and looking at how humour has changed and how it's evolved, and what is universally funny or timelessly funny, and what's clearly of that time. And I was watching a documentary about the top 10 Carry On films, and someone said something very interesting about it was a woman actually who was one of the they always used to have in every film, they'd also have a young thing, one of the kind of up and coming gorgeous girls that were either an ex-model or were going to be a Bond girl or whatever, and they said it was a time when it was innocent, when there was an innocence, and when talking about sex was fun, and they try to make it fun. And I kind of went, oh, that's an interesting sort of viewpoint. But yeah, it's definitely kind of a genre that's been lost in time.
It's a time capsule of its era.
Exactly, and that's why I find them fascinating.
Do you think that as a director of, like Red Dog, could you make like Carry On, I don't know, Up the
Carry
Doggy?
On Mining.
Could there be a Carry On? Could you make a Carry On movie in Australia?
Oh, possibly. I don't know, but I guess you can't make. It's like you can't make a Robert De Niro movie or a Marlon Brando movie. They are what they are.
Yeah.
You can't make Carry On without Sid James or Hattie Jakes or Kenneth Williams. You just can't. Yeah. Because they are all part of the ingredient. They're greater than the sum of its parts. It's that kind of they are what they are.
Let's try to make one now. I've got a script here.
God, okay.
You are a director and an acclaimed one, and I'm trying to get into the acting world, so you can judge me on my acting. This is my audition piece with you. No, that's Notting Hill.
Okay, yeah, rightio.
Okay, so there's a scene from Carry On Camping.
Okay, I'll try to be Gerald Thomas, who was the director.
Okay.
I'm channeling Gerald
Thomas.
Yep.
You're also going to be playing Dr. Kenneth Soper.
Who was originally played by Kenneth Williams, and I'm not going to do a Kenneth Williams accent. Okay.
I'll be playing Miss... No, you will be. I'll be playing Miss Haggard. What's her persona? How should I play her?
Well, that was Hattie Jakes. So she was the one that the large lady.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I assume we're in the hospital. Oh no, camping. Oh, yeah. We're in a tent.
No, from memory, they had a bunch of schoolgirls on the camp that they were basically chaperoning.
Okay, so I'm the chaperone.
Yeah, and I think I was the school doctor or the kind of the counsellor.
Okay.
Yeah. Matron, what can I do for you?
I'm sorry to trouble you, Doctor, but I've been thinking about this camping trip for the girls who have to remain with us for the rest of the holidays.
What about it?
I was wondering whether it was really such a good idea.
Perhaps you're forgetting, Matron, it was my idea.
Oh, no, of course, it's an absolutely splendid one, but...
But what?
Well, I was wondering whether they might find it a trifle Spartan, them being such delicate and refined girls. There's more. The point I'm really trying to make here is that I can jeep full control of them outside anything might happen. What does that even mean, that sentence?
It's a double entendre.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just got the single entendre bit.
It's full of them. You seem to be forgetting, Miss Haggard, that you're coming with us. Surely, okay. You seem to be forgetting, Miss Haggard, you're coming. Surely, you and I can keep suitable control. Sorry.
I think the language is dated. Well, I was thinking about the girls.
So was I.
I see where it's going. Oh, but don't you see it raises the problem of sex?
I wouldn't have dreamed of bothering you in that way.
No, I meant with the girls, that they are likely to come in contact with boys.
Oh, yes. I do think that will be a problem. It has been my experiences once... Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, I don't think that will be a problem. It has been my experience with young people. Once young people sample the delights of the country life and the wonders of nature, they just can't get enough of it.
Exactly.
Well, I was thinking of the girls.
So was I.
Exactly. Sorry.
Well done.
You got the part.
I got the part. I don't think I want to be in something so sexist. That is amazing. It's such a time capsule of an era. Thank you very much, Chris Stenders.
Thank you.
And the Carry On movies.
Well, Hannah was talking before about her coming home drunk film. I think the level of intoxication is important in, like, if you tried to watch The Seventh Samurai blind drunk, it wouldn't be a lot of fun.
Like 14 Samurai.
If, however, you watched a samurai film with Keanu Reeves in it drunk, now you're talking.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it has to do with the how late it is and how pissed you are.
Yeah. Zach?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Alan. There has to be some sort of, as I said, some level of substance in the system in order to enjoy something like this. But I also think, going back to what I was saying before, I think it's who you see it with, and I think it's context in what you said. And, you can maybe see a film and go, I didn't really like that, and then you see it with a different crowd, or you see it with a mate or something, and it just takes on a new line of life form. So I think, guilty pleasure, I think sometimes does also kind of tap into that kind of nostalgia vibe and how you saw things and what they mean to you when you saw them, and how that kind of changes as you grow into a more dedicated film fan. So yeah, I think it's like, time plus alcohol plus equals comedy, or whatever that old adage is.
Yeah. Hannah.
How do I decide what to watch?
Yeah, how do you decide what to watch?
I'm lazy. And I don't deal well with choice, so it's pretty much there.
Yep.
And so I'll watch it. That's how I roll, and that's not helpful. As someone, I wonder, how she does it. So I'll do it. Don't go your own way. I just watch whatever's there, and if it doesn't hold my attention, then I go somewhere else. I have a short attention span though, so that's no good either. Generally, I'm drunk when I'm watching. I studied art history and film studies, so I did all European cinema, and I kind of overdid it. And I was a cinema projectionist by trade, so I saw a lot of shit films, like over and over and over again. So I actually quite like shit films on repeat, I think is what we're...
So you've built up a tolerance.
Yeah. And generally with the sound down too. So it's just like watching the back of people's heads and shit films. And then I'd forget to do the real changeover, and it'd stop and I'd go, what's happened? So that's a thing.
When you were a projectionist, I'm just remembering the scene from Fight Club. Did you ever splice anything?
No. But I decided not to watch that through the window because I was working in an old reel-to-reel cinema, so I had to do the changeover. So I knew all about the cigarette burns, blah, blah. But I didn't want to watch this film because I thought, I've heard there's a twist. I want to watch it in the cinema properly, so I won't. So I was just getting on with my jobs. And you have to... Because of the changeover, you have to just keep an eye out and make sure that, you don't miss the changeover. And I happened to glance out just as Brad Pitt's showing you how to do a changeover on a film. So he goes, and there's a cigarette burn, and it flashes up. I saw the cigarette burn, and I thought, fuck. And I changed over. But it was only halfway through the reel. So then I noticed when I went to change the other reel, and I'm like, I've edited heavily. So what I did was at the end of that reel, I just put on the end of that reel and then moved on. And the end of the film is such a, mind fuck that no one actually said anything.
Yeah. People just walked out going, that David Fincher's a genius.
I was all over the place. Yeah, just an edit on the fly. That's what I did.
That's
fantastic.
fantastic.
Watch it like that now.
Yeah.
I think you really can. I think it's a film is for me not that black and white. Even black and white films aren't that black and white. It's all about how you sort of come to it. And if you come to something, I don't think anything can be come to as a guilty pleasure or high art. It's what you come away with it from. So if you actually say to someone, "Oh, don't see this because it's high art," or "Don't see that," because you're actually assuming what the viewer is going to be thinking of it, and I think that's a dangerous sort of path to go down. I think if you can kind of present a film to someone and then they can kind of come to their own conclusions about what it is, that's how stuff like guilty pleasures are sort of formed. That's how a filmic taste is formed, because I find it really kind of problematic to be constantly saying to people, "I don't watch this film, it's no good," or "Don't watch this film, it's no good." I know that is apparently the nature of criticism, but I think that's a somewhat of a shut-off sort of way of looking at things, and particularly in the way that our visual cultures are sort of evolving, where people have so much access to so much content. Hopefully they'll be able to kind of curate their own pathway, and so I come to Bergman as much as I would come to any sort of person who's directing a film on roller skates. I think it's something you can't be that kind of shut off from it. You have to kind of approach any film as an equal, and then it's what you take away from it.
Yeah, I agree. Kriv, do you foresee Australia returning to a time where we'll make guilty pleasure movies like in that era of 10BA during the 80s when dentists and doctors were financing films, so we had films like Crocodile Dundee and Young Einstein? Do you think there'll be a moment where cinema in Australia will embrace such, I guess, glorious trash again?
I think we do already. I think for a small country, we make a lot of movies, and we make a lot of really good movies. And we also make all kinds of movies or films, movies and films. No, I think it's interesting now that there's crowdfunding, and now that the business has gone to shit in one level, and that the theatrical model's died. I notice a lot of people still going and making horror movies, very much influenced by that exploitation period. They're making all kinds of films, especially a new generation that are just picking up a camera because they can, and they can get some friends together and shoot these films for under $1 million or a few $100,000, and they, some of them are doing remarkably well. This film called The Suicide Theory, I don't know if you've heard about it. It's just was made in Brisbane on a smell of an oily rag, and it's got incredible critical response in America. It's a real kind of mind-bending kind of thriller genre, like some kind of like a horror thriller, and it's making a lot of ripples. So I think as a country, as I said, as a small country, I think we're always tapping into that 10BA period, I think, and that was really the birth of the industry that we have today. It's still there.
So crowdfunding's like the new 10BA.
Exactly, yeah. And the offset. We have this thing called a producer offset, which is actually a great thing, and I still don't think that's being fully exploited yet either. And the fact that now there are these lower budget films being made using the offset, I think there's still hope for more guilty pleasures and trash being made.
Alan, you have played in many different feature films, comedy feature films, in many ways.
Four.
Four
is not many.
More than me.
Well, yeah, okay. But you've got, okay. Four.
Bad Eggs, The Crack.
Bad Eggs,
Nugget.
The Crack, The Nugget, and... what was the other one? I can't even remember now. Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well done, correct. You win a prize. In many ways, comedy, the genre of comedy, is the guilty pleasure amongst...
Siam Sunset.
Siam Sunset, yes.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You win.
So no, we've tipped over into many now.
I kind of see the comedy genre in terms of feature films in Australia is kind of like the guilty pleasure amongst a sea of, I guess, dramatic, heroine, sad Australian films. Do you think that is the case, that comedy films can always have a wide audience?
I think so. I mean, there should be more comedy films about heroin. But, yeah, look... Laughing is an easier thing to share in a group of people. So because cinema is still and what Zach was talking about, some of the fun of cinema is that collective enjoyment, you know, that you should have with a roller skating film, and you should have with Carry On, and you should have, you know, going, I mean, not like, no, I mean, watching Milo and Otis with a bunch of friends late at night is a different sort of fun than watching it every night after the comedy festival on your own. And I think that my brother said a really interesting thing about planes. He said one of the things he misses about being on a plane is that weird laughter when you used to go to the toilet on a plane and everyone would have their headphones on and be watching the same film, and you'd just hear that roar of the engines and occasionally people going ha 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 as you were coming back from the toilet and you'd taken your headphones off. And now, because everyone's got different individual screens and they can watch 5,000 different movies with any references to planes removed from them, that collectiveness is gone. And I think that comedy, it's lovely to sit in a room full of people and laugh at the same thing. It's not as lovely to sit in a room with a whole bunch of people and go, oh, stop taking heroin. It has its own joys. Yeah. But I think that comedy is more far-reaching than going, oh, Kate Blanchett, stop taking heroin. Hugo Weaving, stop taking heroin. And don't grow beards. And stop taking heroin. I think comedy, as opposed to heroin, is a more uniting force.
I found that too.
Yeah.
On that note, any heroin question? Sorry, any...
Can I just say, I think there should be, you know how there's an American genre of films like the dance movie and the scary movie, which is pastiches of all the tropes of horror movies put together. I think there is a place for the Australian movie. Yeah. Like, you know, basically taking bits of all sorts of Australian films. So basically the 3 major tropes, which is gangsters, the outback and heroin, and putting them all together.
And all the characters played by Bill Hunter.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Bill Hunter's face CGI'd onto Kate Blanchett's body. And then occasionally with a beard. But Hugo Weaving's big beard from that film that he's done recently. Yeah. So that, I think there's a space for that, for the Australian movie. Yeah. That would be fun, because you could probably get everyone who had been in those movies to be back in it again. It would be fun.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Okay, Notting Hill. And I'll just go. My first 2 are Notting Hill and Pi, Darren Aronofsky's first film. I absolutely love that. Watching them one after another is also a very yeah.
Top 10, that's a lot of films.
How about like top 2?
Yeah.
Sorry. For me, it'd be a Razorhead. I would say would be my number 1, and Duck Soup would be the Marx Brothers would be. So yeah. You can psychoanalyze me whatever you want to from those 2 things.
I think mine would be E.T., Empire Strikes Back, or Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I'm seeing a thematic connection.
No heroin. Criv?
Oh gosh, I always hate this question because it's like trying to choose between
red
children.
dog, blue dog, brown dog.
Yeah. The Crow. I don't know. Paris, Texas. I love that film. I always love that film. And Any film by Kubrick. Any Kubrick film. Yeah.
That doesn't narrow it down, does it? Oh.
I think he has 10 films. So
Yeah,
that's right.
I Doctor Strangelove's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Love that film, and gosh, I had another one in my head, but I stopped on that one, didn't I? Too busy taking the piss out of you. I'm so sorry. That was my comeuppance.
We can hold on that thought.
Oh
Any
no,
other
All
questions?
About Eve. I love that film.
Which one?
All About Eve.
Oh, yeah.
I love that film. So camp, except the evil lesbian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it
Really
works out for us.
Snappy dialogue.
I'm Ruby Rose's Eve.
Yeah.
It's weird doing a film on stage live with one person. So I tend not to do my live shows but I think there's something to do with comedy, comic timing and editing. There is definitely something that I've learned from films about, the pause and the change of tempo from watching a lot of films. But I don't necessarily think that's from comedy film. I think thrillers I find actually more influence in that sense, because I like to string people along and then upset them.
I think your sense of humour as a performer is shaped quite early on by what you watch and what you listen to. Yeah, there we go. So country practice, and that shines through when someone watches you. So I think that the things that I find funny, I found funny from when I was quite young, and I still find them funny. And I think that it becomes more refined sometimes, or not, as the case may be. Like, I've gone from liking double entendres to just liking single entendres, for instance. But I think that when you see something like the Carry On films when you're young, that sense of humour, that enjoyment that you get from it stays with you for a long time.
And they say, I mean, I guess Red Dog has comedy in it, but comedy is the hardest thing to get right in filmic terms. Like, film comedy is very, very challenging. It's the hardest genre to pick, and it's also, when it's brilliant, it's kind of a miracle. There's it's a real skill to do comedy and do it well, and that's why I think I've got a theory. I think comedians or comedic actors make the best actors, because they have. No, it's true.
Yes.
This is. Because I think it's knowing exactly, it's timing, and it's knowing how to keep an audience captivated and giving them something. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to learn from comedy. Yeah.
I learnt a lot from watching movies. All of my early stand-up shows were pretty much based around sort of 3-act narrative structures, and just having the ebb and flow of a 1-hour stand-up show following almost the feel that you would get and the emotional ups and downs in a film. Because I thought to myself naively, how do I keep people in their seats for an hour? Well, maybe let's take them on a story. So yeah, I very much stole the idea of cinema narratives in telling my stand-up shows.
Sorry.
Comedy. I guess that's what I did. The same thing with stand-up. Not nearly as thoughtful and much of a process, but I guess I did what they did with the pug in Milo and Otis, is they just fucking threw me in there. And I'm like, I treaded water. But it is that just trying to, like, a story is very much like I'm a storyteller when I do comedy. I do comedy, and so it is that story. So the three act is quite important, and all the drama at the 3/4 mark.
The point of no return.
Yeah.
One theory was the fact that comedy works really well when it's in short, sort of 25-minute pieces, and to sustain laughs over an hour is quite taxing on an audience, especially if it's like a 90-minute film. So that's why there's always gear changes, and often films are designed around comedic set pieces, almost like action movies. So maybe that's part of the problem, is that its attention spans get a bit wavery in an audience.
It's not that recent, but it's a film that I thought was quite groundbreaking, and it's for when it came out, and it's still actually. It's an amazing film. It's a film called Four Lions, which is a comedy about a group of like a terrorist cell, an English homegrown terrorist cell, and it does this incredible balancing act of absolute kind of pathos and horror with just absurd comedy about these bumbling Muslim terrorists wanting to kind of kill themselves, and it's the oddest experience, and it's probably I think it's a work of genius. I think it's the most amazing comedy I've seen in the last 10 years.
Anyone else want to add to that? No?
No, look, I think I would agree that I think there's a lot of self-awareness in film comedy now. Everyone's a little bit, so many new films go through so many kind of test audience screens, and it's almost like, the initial kernel of a joke or initial kind of concept of a comedy maybe gets kind of filtered out by the process of elimination or a process of, studio interference or what have you. And I feel that kind of, just to use the Marx Brothers as an example, where that's a group of, comedians or a group of theatrical performers, and that would have been just their comedy being captured on screen. But now I think, a lot of comedies are probably made by committee, and I think that can be tricky to actually pull off.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
I don't
mentioned Vin Diesel.
Yeah, Vin Diesel, yeah.
I'm a big Vin Diesel fan.
Yeah.
I watched Triple X recently that I had never seen, and that's...
I would say Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel action.
Yeah.
And Triple X 2, I believe, have Ice Cube in it, and Ice Cube is pretty much, peak guilty pleasure actor for me. So,
Guilty pleasure actors?
I'm with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, yeah.
Cruise Control.
Oh, he's so sincere. He does his stunts now. That's a fantastic question to end on. Everyone, please be aware that the film festival does have its Guilty Pleasures program, which is the night shift, which is horror movies and awesome things like that. But also, don't forget to see Crib's film, which starts tomorrow night, The Principal, which is here at MIFF, and also Sucker, which is on Saturday and Sunday here at the festival as well. Keep that round of applause going for our guests this evening, Alan Bro, Crib Stenders, Zach Hepburn, and Hannah Gadsby. Thank you.